have to understand this word. It's good for African Americans to hear this word because we must recognize that we are not the only people that suffered. Sometimes we are so preoccupied with our own suffering that we delegitimize the suffering of other people. But you must recognize there's a reason that Native Americans are still on reservations after hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. You must realize that the Jewish people have gone through atrocities almost in our lifetime and resurrected and come back. And we must be hardened by the fact that if they survive, we can too. But the text at its core is a prophetic utterance over the nation of Israel, the dry, parched, barren destitution that they would face, scattered all over the world from 1933 to 1945. Roughly 6 million Jews died, making up those bones, those dry bones. 6 million Jews made up those dry, very dry bones. What Ezekiel described as the valley of dry bones, and then said the bones were dry, and then comes back and says they were very dry. He was looking to one of the most horrific genocides that we have seen in the history of the world.
Now, T.D. Jakes doing this is so directed or familiar, similar to what Margaret Sanger said that they must do until to these blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans. This is her statement, Margaret Sanger. The minister's work is also important, and also he should be trained, perhaps by the Federation, as to our ideals and the goal that we hope to reach. We do not want word to go out that we want to exterminate the Negro population, and the minister is the man who can straighten out that idea if it even occurs to any of their rebellious members.
I will bring you back into your land in verse 12. I'm going to bring you back into your land. So this is not just picturesque. This is not just storytelling. This is prophetic as to the destiny of God's people, Israel, and what they would endure. The text at its core is a prophetic utterance over the nation of Israel, the dry, parched, barren destitution that they would face, scattered all over the world from 1933 to 1945. Roughly 6 million Jews died, making up those dry bones. 6 million Jews made up those dry, very dry bones. What Ezekiel described as the valley of dry bones, and then said the bones were dry, and then comes back and says they were very dry. He was looking to one of the most horrific genocides that we have seen in the history of the world. 6 million Jews in a few short years, a short period of time, most of it in a few months, slaughtered, yanked from their families. Some of them never.
Now, so they sent their watchdog out, T.D. Snakes, and he's talking about 6 million Jews. Now, when you go, this is some of the lies that he brought out real quick. When you go to Ezekiel 37, verse 10, it say, so I prophesied, and he commanded me, and the breath came into them. So the house of Israel will get the breath coming into them, and they lived and stood upon their feet as an exceeding great army. So in 1948, those peoples over there did not have an army. They was even a part of the German army fighting over the homeland of Germany. They had thousands of soldiers that was so-called Jewish peoples fighting with Hitler's army. The American peoples went over there with their army because Stalin and Churchill, Churchill and the French was going against Hitler, and Hitler was kicking they behind. So when he pulled all his planes out and started bombing Britain and the French, they called America. America, we need you. We need General Patton. We need you. So then America came and saved the day. They didn't have an extended great army that was all the house of Israel. Because in verse 11 it says, in Ezekiel 37 verse 11 it says, then he said unto me, son of man, these bones are the whole house of Israel. See, the whole house of Israel was not an army in 1930s, in the 1940s, in World War II, when the so-called the rich people gave them that land over there. Then he say that God was going to bring them to the homeland, but he don't talk about in verse 19 when Ephraim and Judah was supposed to be joined together. That's when they was going to go back into the homeland. Not just a bunch of people talking about they Jewish and they just going to go back into the homeland. It's supposed to be the northern kingdom and the southern kingdom going to get joined together, and then they're going to go back into the homelands. And that goes back to the fact of this 6 million Jews. Okay, even if that was true, what happened to the 100 million descendants of slaves came over here on slave ships, thrown over the boat, killed, hung, raped, whatever? 100 million dead just on the way over here. Then you got the Native Americans who are Israelites from the northern kingdom, Ephraim. They were slaughtered. 70 million Israelites from the northern kingdom was slaughtered. So you got 70 million, you got 100 million. The tribe of Judah, Benjamin, Levi, the 100 million, slaughtered, murdered, killed. Ephraim, the 70 million, the Taino so-called Indians, and all of these, Gad, Reuben, all of them were slaughtered, 70 million. So you mean to tell me he gon', and plus they were scattered all over the world too, on slave ships, which these peoples over there, they did not go back to that land on a slave ship. They never touched a ship. They walked down there, or rode on a camel, or rode on some kind of vehicle. They did not go on their ship nowhere. So when the scattering was going on, these people were scattered on slave ships to be sold. Then when they got to their scattering place, once they were scattered to those lands, they were sold. When was these people over there sold to anybody? Find the date, find the sale papers, because we got the sale papers on the descendants of slaves. We got the sale papers. They were sold in this place to this man, to that plantation, and we still got the names on us today to prove the fact that we were sold to other peoples, and they put their name on us. So when were these people sold to somebody and they put the name on them? You see, and when did these people have a extended great army? Because they never had an army back then in the 30s when they went back to their homeland. So he just butchering these scriptures, and these people done sent him out to be just like Margaret Sanger said, we need to minister. When they start rebelling against what we saying, we need to grab one of their ministers and put him out there so he can correct some of this stuff and straighten some of this stuff up. And that's exactly what they did with T.D. Jakes. And so when you look out, let's get real quick. Because they gonna say that their original name is done away with in the last days too. When you go to Numbers 24, Balaam was given went into a trance and was given a vision. It says in verse 14 of Numbers 24, it say, I go unto my people, come therefore, and I will advise thee what this people will do to thy people in the latter days. You see, in the last days, what is the other nations is going to do to the nation of Israel? And it says, jumping down to verse 17, it say, I shall see him, but not now. I shall behold him, but not near. There shall come a star out of Jacob, and a scepter shall rise out of Israel, and smite the corners of Moab, and to destroy all the children of Sheth. Verse 18, and Edom shall become a possession, Syria also shall be a possession, and his enemies and Israel shall do valiantly. Hold on, wait a minute. So, and you mean to tell me in the last days, when these Israelites go back to their homeland and have an everlasting kingdom, you got a star coming out of Jacob and going to war with these nations, putting them into slavery as a possession, and destroying, warring with some of these nations in the last days. And see, this is how we know that the house of Esau, Edom, is still around, because they not we haven't seen no savior come and war with these nations. No savior has come to war with the nations, and especially the nation of Edom. Edom and the savior never had a fight. When he was here on earth, the Romans murdered him and killed him. They didn't go to war with him. And so that is the prophecy that come to pass. Isaiah 63 say he's going to come to Edom. Revelations 1 verse 7, chapter 1 verse 7 say he's going to come to the people that pierced him. You see, he come to them same people. The nation of Edom, he going to come to them same people and fight them, and they still here today. So these individuals sending their watchdog to try to do something, but it's not gonna work. But it just shows you the strategy of these people. They see Nick Cannon talking about who we are, exposing the truth. They see Deshaun Jackson trying to post some stuff that might expose the truth. They see all these singers and movie stars talking about the situation, and so they say, "Oh, see, we got some rebellious members. Let's send one of the ministers out there. Let's send one of their ministers out there and see if he can crush this whole operation, which we gonna have him with more followers than anybody anyway." But we'll leave it at there. All praises to Yahweh B'Shem Yahweh Shah B'Shem Rikakadash. Double honors to the elders pushing the truth. Peace to the elect worldwide. The kingdom is at hand. Shalom.